Every moment tests you. Every action defines you. This is the prestigious initiative where mindset becomes muscle and character becomes legacy. I'm Chris Bean, martial artist, coach, and relentless believer in growth. If you're here to sharpen your edge, lead with integrity, and build a life that echoes beyond your years, you're home. You can find the podcast on social media at PrestigiousPod. You can find me at Chris Bean Official, and the email for the podcast is prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean. Today, my guest is my friend Caleb Benoit, founder of Connect Coffee, a roaster and cafe built on community, quality, and connection. Caleb isn't just an entrepreneur. He's a husband and a dad of 2 young kids, which means he has the knowledge of balancing the grind of having a small business and the joy of having a family life as well. Today, we're going to talk about what it really takes to build a small business rooted in purpose and how to navigate growth without losing connection, and why balance isn't even about perfection. It's about persistence. This is a blend of entrepreneurship, craftsmanship, and life wisdom. Caleb, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris. You said grind of running a small business. I see what you did there.
just a little subtle coffee humor there.
That's good. That's good. I recognize that.
So, Caleb, why would somebody want to listen to our conversation here today?
That's a good question. I mean, I think as someone who's started a small business, running a small business, probably have some unique insights into what that's like, and share some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think talking about entrepreneurship, people tend to romanticize the idea of being an entrepreneur, of running their own business, and there are some great things about it, but not too often do people talk about the difficult parts of it or the ugly parts of it. So we don't necessarily have to dwell on those things, but for every entrepreneur that makes the cover of the magazine, there's probably 10 or 15 who have failed in some way, shape, or form. So anyway, happy to chat about whatever you want to get into.
Very good. So, Caleb, let's start with Connect. Okay, what was the spark that started Connect Coffee, and why now is that the thing for you?
So the spark for starting the coffee business was actually a couple of trips I had taken to the Dominican Republic in Haiti. Went down there with a few church groups to do some short-term mission work alongside some local churches there for a week or 10 days or so, and those trips were kind of an eye-opening experience for me. For me, is my first time in a developing country, first time seeing like some real poverty, like you see in a place like Haiti. And so, it sounds maybe a little dramatic, but it kind of lit a fire under me. And I was kind of in this career transition. I was thinking about, started thinking about some legacy type stuff, and this idea that, hey, whenever I get to the end of my work life, whenever that is, I want to be able to look back and say that I'm proud of the work that I did, and that I did something that benefited other people, not just benefited myself. Leave some kind of legacy. So anyway, that led me down the path to thinking through, like, okay, just visited a country like this. I can see the need there. I can see the problems there. How can I be part of the solution and work towards something that I can be proud of and say that, hey, I recognize this problem and kind of did something about it. So as you know, coffee is grown primarily in the developing world, obviously consumed at scale in a market like the US or North America. And so fast forward, started a coffee business with a give back program where we take a portion of our sales and use those funds to aid community development in places like I had visited. So that's the very Cliff Notes version of it. We could dive into that, but that was really the spark, was those trips that I had taken.
All right. Okay. So I know a little bit about coffee and the farming aspect and the whole. It's not just I go to the grocery store, I buy the coffee, I put it into the Keurig or the maker or whatever, and pow, I have coffee. There's a lot of hands that are involved in getting that coffee on the shelf or to the roaster and actually into your cup. And the sense that I got from you, even just there, is you not only know that, but that connection there. And you honor the farmers by giving back proceeds that are would otherwise not be. And the wonderful thing about that is, okay, so let me ask this: are you working with individual farmers to get the green coffee?
Yeah. So for some of the coffees, we have what we could call like a direct trade relationship where, we know the farmer, we know the person responsible for growing the coffee, exporting the coffee, and we, work with them directly, more or less. Obviously, there's people in between handling logistics and things like that. But yeah, for some of the coffees that we roast and sell, we can tell you the name or the names of the farmers, the co-op, et cetera. For some other coffees, it's not quite that direct. We're buying the coffee from trusted exporters, importers who, can tell us a little bit about the coffee, the region, who the growers might be. So it really depends on the coffee. But yeah, as much as possible, we try to have relationship with people on the ground where coffee is grown.
Which is a big part because often those farmers that are doing all the work to give us the coffee that we all know and love and sometimes need, they go often forgotten about. So it's nice that you keep them, pivotal into the Connect company.
I mean, like you said, it's easy to have your morning coffee and not think about all the hands that it's touched along the way, right? You've got the farm or the farmer and the staff there who are responsible for growing the product. Maybe it gets sent from there to a mill where it's processed. It gets sent somewhere else to be exported, put on a container, in a container on a boat, gets shipped to a warehouse stateside. I mean, you just think about all the steps that it has to take to get from a place like Central America, South America, to your house in your kitchen on a Sunday morning. It's pretty wild, and it's not something that we put too much thought behind very often, at least.
Yeah. All right. Now you talked about you went to visit this on a mission trip for church. Okay, does faith carry over into the business? And if so, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that is something I think about fairly often. So, my my ultimate motivation is certainly faith driven. Just personally, it's to glorify God. Um, I don't know that that explicitly fleshes itself out in the business, right? Like, I've heard business owners talk about their own business being a Christian business and things like that. And I've never known like exactly what that means. You only hire people who are Christians, or you only sell to, like I don't know what that means exactly. So personally, as the founder CEO, like my ultimate motivation, like I said, is faith driven. Certainly, some of the values that we have as a company, you know, you could call Christian values. The motivation was a personal one. So yeah, in that respect, you could say that the business is faith based or faith driven, but it doesn't show up in our the public side of the business necessarily in our marketing or things like that.
Okay, so the martial arts school that I work at, we're faith based, and we pray before the classes. But of course, that would be a little bit harder to convey that message through the roastery or through the cafe. So I could see the challenge there to present that in such a way that is conveyed, but not overbearing, perhaps, or like you said, you're only hiring Christians, or what does that actually look like in the realm that you're in?
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a line that you walk, and I don't, if my business I run the way I think it should be run, and someone else will run it the way they think there should be run. So, people can obviously describe their faith through their business in any means that they want. I'm not to say one's right or one's wrong, but yeah, it's one of those things where maybe for us we could say it's a little bit more subtle or less overt. We have wholesale accounts that are their churches. They buy our coffee and they serve for their congregations on Sunday morning. So obviously, conversations with those folks maybe looks a little bit different than a traditional wholesale buyer. And so there are parts to the day-to-day business where it does come out, it does get vocalized, but yeah, it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, a hard line to walk, I would imagine. Now, well, okay, so connection is the not only the core of your business, but is actually the name of your business.
Yeah.
How do you allow that to show up more than just the name, but as the identity, the brand identity that you have?
Yeah, I think you see it on a few different levels. So, as you know, we own and operate a brick and mortar cafe. When I walk into that cafe at any point in time, I see people connecting over coffee. Right. Sometimes it's friends who are there to catch up. Sometimes it's a business meeting or a professional context where it's two colleagues or vendor client type relationship. Sometimes it's students from the university across the street who just need to get off campus and get a break. So that's one level of connection, right? Like coffee is I think, a bit unique in that it's something that we can connect with one another over. Um, but then at the same time, part of the motivation for naming the business Connect Roasters was this idea that we can be connected to, we talked about like what happens at origin, what happens at the source. We can be connected. We can know some of those folks who are responsible for this thing that we love and drink every day, right? And so uh, one of the things I wanted to accomplish, one of the pillars of the business, I guess, I wanted to try to facilitate that connection. I wanted our business to be able to say to you, hey, you're drinking Connect Roasters coffee on a Sunday morning. Let me tell you a little bit more information about how it got to you and where it came from and how it's grown. So kind of connection on a more meta level, if you will.
Well, not only that, but I know that you have events that you do for the people in the community where you have coffee tastings or you learn about. Okay, I'll let you share. You have a handful of
Yeah.
different things that you have for the community that people can come in and learn more than just, hey, this is here's a cup of coffee, but actually learn about the process that it takes to make that great coffee.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I love learning. I love education. One of the most gratifying things for me in this business is to, convey some of what I've learned to our customers. And so events is certainly one way that we do that. We've hosted events here at the roastery where we talk about coffee roasting. I've hosted classes where we discuss more palate development type things, talk about what you and I are talking about, how coffee gets from a faraway place to your kitchen at home. And so, yeah, that's one of the things that's, like I said, I'm really passionate about it. It's really gratifying to me to be able to pass on some of the stuff that I've learned or some of the stuff that happens in our day to day business to folks who are interested. Because I think that's one of the things I've learned as a business owner is folks buy product from us. Yes, because they love it and it's part of the routine and habit and it tastes good and all that. But they like seeing a peek behind the scenes. They want to know more about it as well. And so those are fun experiences when we're able to interact or connect on that level.
And while we live in a semi good size neighborhood area, a couple of different neighborhoods, I guess. I don't think are you the only roaster in our area?
As far as I know, as of right now, yes.
Okay.
I know at least one other company that's roasting maybe 30 miles, 45 minutes away, but I think we're the only ones here locally in our county that I know of that's roasting coffee.
And so to have and you started with just a roaster, you're just roasting the coffee and you're selling to end users, and you go out to you have the farmers market where you go in and present stuff at those, but then now you have the cafe. So can you bring me in and talk about that next evolution for where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people who get into coffee get into it with the cafe being kind of the end goal or the primary motivation for doing so. That wasn't necessarily my motivation or my thought, but it does seem to be part of the natural progression. And so, yeah, we're always looking at expanding what the brick and mortar retail presence could look like. At the same time, I think we've got a lot of opportunity or untapped potential on like the wholesale side of our business, selling to other businesses or churches, schools. We do a lot of coffee fundraisers. We work with both local organizations and organizations around the country who use our coffee to raise funds for whatever they're doing, whether it's a trip for the student council, the band program, equipment for the sports team, things like that. So, yeah, I think on one hand, the company, the business has been around for the better part of a decade. On the other hand, there's still a lot of room to grow in kind of all of our sales channels, I would say.
Now, we talked about a little bit in the beginning there about the kind of downsides, the people, the peek behind the curtain that most people don't get to see. You have the roastery, you have the cafe. I'm sure, and not to mention you have family. You're running the business. You're trying to manage all of these things. You have all these plates spinning. What has been the hardest lesson that you've had to learn throughout that experience for you?
Um, Hardest lesson. I think you know, when I was single and running the business, I knew that I could, if I wanted to, I could just work on the business 24/7, right? I could work at work and I could go home and work some more. And it felt like I had, all the time in the world to get things done. As I've gotten older, as I now have a family, that's not possible and not even really desirable, right? And so I think one of the lessons I have learned, I'm continuing to learn, is this elusive idea of work-life balance. And that's something that probably looks different for everybody. It should look different for everyone. But yeah, learning what that looks like for me, for our business, for my family, uh, that's an ongoing lesson I'm learning, or learning best practices on how to do that.
And okay, so the work-life balance, that is tough for me because okay, so work-life balance would mean that when I'm at home, I'm at home. When I'm at work, I'm at work, and there's the two worlds don't cross over, collide.
Yep.
As an employee, as a business owner, I don't know that that's possible because
Yeah.
if your phone rings and you're at work and it's grandma and grandma is sick or something's going on, well, I'm at work. I'm not going to talk to grandma right now. Okay, no, I probably should take this call because it might be important because she never calls me and something's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that work life balance, I think, is the thing, quote unquote, that people like to promote or say that's. I don't know that it's possible. I think we need to find a way to perhaps have balance in our life, yes, but I don't know that completely secluding one area from the next is the way to go because and the other thing for that is I am me, whether I'm at home or I'm at work or I'm at the grocery store, I'm still me. And I think in the work life separation, I have to be work me at work and I have to be home me at home. I'm sure maybe different elements of my personality come across in those different areas, but I'm still me at all of those
Yeah.
different places. And I think that the hard part is with that work life balance, like I need to be me at home, at home here. And that's a challenge. And I think, like you said, everybody is going to have a different interpretation, a different meaning of what that looks like for them. And I think that probably, and some, from the sense that I get a little bit, is your wife is helping to critique and shape that for you, so it works good for your balance in your marriage and with your family, and also has that connection to the business as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not possible to keep um, work out of home 100% and vice versa. I think there's probably um, different degrees of work life balance, right? Um, yeah, you're right. I'm at home on a Saturday morning with the kids, and there's something urgent that is going on with the business, and I get a phone call. Right, I take the phone call, excuse myself, and try to solve it the best I can remotely. So yeah, it's by the strict definition of it, it is impossible, especially as a business owner, right? Because ultimately, whatever happens in the business, it falls on me. It's ultimately my responsibility. And then just like personally, right? Like I can be at home, during the weekend, not have my phone anywhere near me. I'm playing with the kids, doing something with my wife, whatever. But that part of your brain, that percentage of your brain that is occupied by work, like that's hard to shut off, at least for me personally. So I might not be anywhere near my computer or my phone, and not at work, but that doesn't mean that like there's something going on in the back of my head that's thinking about what happened at work yesterday or what's going to happen next week. So, yeah, I suppose like it's just something that needs to be monitored and managed.
Well,
So yeah,
oh,
I don't know that I've got it figured out.
that background processing, I don't know that I would want to turn that off because sometimes
Yeah,
that background stuff that I'm not on my phone, I'm not doing the thing that I'm trying to solve the problem for or thinking about, but I'll be out walking with the kids or hanging out at home or in the shower and
yeah,
pow, that idea comes up. And I don't know that I would want to turn that off because those are some great ideas. Now you have to be able to capitalize
for
and do
sure.
something with them. But if you turn that off, then you would miss out on those things. So I understand where the like the work-life balance counterpart is coming from, but I think everybody has to figure out how to navigate that for themselves and for their family in a way that best works for them in the situation they're in, which seems like a real generic statement, but I think really that's what we all have to do and figure out our own way through those challenges.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And like you said, like, I am, husband, father, boss, business owner, like those are all a part of me. There's no completely compartmentalizing any of those things. So yeah, you're right, 100%. Um, so yeah, maybe we could write a book on this.
Well, okay, so let's talk about success here for a little bit.
Mhm.
How do you define success for your business outside of the financials?
Yeah, I mean, at least part of it goes back to what I mentioned before about like the reason for starting the business. Started thinking about some legacy type stuff. Um, because someday, you and I aren't going to be here. I am going to continue to exist through my kids and my family, and hopefully through the business as well. So, yeah, I think one way to measure success is for the business specifically, like, hey, what is the business done outside of generating revenue for those who are part of it, right? And so, I think about this give back model that's a pillar of our business. Um, one of the things that we started doing during the pandemic is we started using some of the sales that were generated through the sale of coffee. We started using those funds to help some initiatives a little bit closer to home. And so, yeah, in 2020, we partnered with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, which operates as like one of the big food banks in Cook County and sort of Chicago and the surrounding areas. And so, through the sale of coffee, we've helped fund tens of thousands of meals through them and their network. And so it's that kind of stuff that I point to and say, this is the stuff that is really success. Like, what does success look like? I think it looks like something like that. Some things that we're doing for not just ourselves but other people, and some stuff that can last, um, even beyond the life of the business, whenever that is.
Well, and the beautiful thing is when you're able to connect your business to other areas, not just in the hometown where you're at, but then that extends your reach, which extends the legacy throughout those things. And especially if you can do it in a way that helps people that are in need, whether that's the farmers that are growing the crops or the people that are in need closer to the community, that is an outreach that goes above and beyond what most businesses do, but also that extends that legacy for the business.
Yeah, yeah, you're right about that, 100%. And we have partners all over the country. We have customers all over the country. One of the cool things about coffee is how um, universal it is and how ubiquitous it is. And so, yeah, I think the nature of the product allows us to have that kind of almost worldwide reach in some respects.
Mm. Yeah, okay, so talking about success, moving from the business to home, have you had moments at home where you've had to learn and grow at home as a dad of two young kids? I can imagine that probably happens more than often. That
Every day.
those things carry over to the way that you approach the business. And so, okay, let me define that maybe a little bit better. Have you learned things at home being a dad that have
Mhm.
influenced how you operate or manage or run the business?
That's a good question. Yeah, the short answer is I don't know. I think, you know, when you become a dad, as you know, like things change, right? Your mindset shifts, your priorities change, and so I think one thing I could say for sure is, my wife and I having two kids now, um, they help put things in perspective. Um, and so I think, one thing that's happened is they've helped realign our priorities, my priorities, and perhaps a more healthy way. And so I think again that carries over to all areas of my life, including the business. Um, you know, Practically speaking, maybe that means that I don't get hyper focused on this, one thing in the business, good or bad. In part because I have this, like, I don't know, new set of priorities or perspectives. I don't know. Some of that sounds theoretical, but I
Values.
think I'm still trying to.
Maybe values would be the right way.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that is. I mean, our kids are young. Our oldest is just two, so um, being a dad is still a relatively new thing for me, and being parents is relatively new for our family. So I think we're still figuring that out. But yeah, I think it certainly has changed the way I approach and operate in the business in some ways.
Well, and I think that having kids, I think, gives you an opportunity to look at things maybe through a different set of eyes than you would otherwise, because you kind of, not that you have to live through the kids, but you have to be mindful about the way that you hold yourself, the way you stand, the way you operate at home. And
Yeah,
not that you wouldn't have otherwise have done that, but really when you have kids, I think that that's something that changes, because the kids like to play, they play house. And when they play house, they emulate what mom and dad are doing. And
yeah,
that's essentially how they learn how to do those things. And when they get older, especially
yeah,
girls are really that's really fundamental for how that they're learning, and how they perceive or think the life will be when they get to be that old. And it's the same thing for like for your wife. I would imagine she the and you, even the family atmosphere that we live in is either really similar to what we had growing up or is completely opposite. And the
mm,
reason I say this is because it's really similar, because we like what we had growing up and we want to keep that and we continue that. Or it's completely opposite, because maybe we didn't grow up in such a great family house, and so we want to do something better for our kids, and so it's completely devoid of that.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And the other thing I was thinking of as you were saying that is, having kids now gives me another point of connection with people that I deal with on a daily basis, vendors, clients. I have more empathy for those people who have kids who, you know how life happens. Like sometimes home life disrupts work life, and you've got to postpone this or cancel that or change that. And so I think maybe I've become a more understanding business owner now, and having kids and being able to identify with those who had them before me.
And I think and what that does is that gives you more empathy than what you had before. And when you have empathy, then you can
100%.
connect. Again, there's that word again. You can connect with not only just the community, but you can connect with your people more, and then they can make a bigger impact on the community.
Yeah, I mean, before kids, I always wondered why people with kids were always late to everything, and now, now that you have kids, you're like, okay, I've got a little better understanding why so and so shows up, a few minutes late and a little more disheveled looking than they otherwise would.
Yes, because anything you would like them to do on any certain time frame, the kids like to do completely opposite of that, and it's always like you have to get the kids ready, half an hour or more ahead of when you actually need to leave the house, but
Oh
you
yeah,
also have to get yourself ready and get the kids ready and then still get out the door on time.
yeah. You look at the clock and you think, oh, I've got all the time in the world. There's no reason to feel any urgency here. And then next thing you know, you're like chasing the kids around trying to get them in the car. And
Where's your other
yeah, I don't know.
shoe? Where's your coat? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Can't find your socks. It's a mess.
Yes. Okay. So I think that owning a business, and then of course being the head of the household for your family, there's a sense of discipline that has to be in place to kind of keep everything in check. Not necessarily work-life balance, but discipline and maybe organization. That is the through line for those, in order to keep everything thriving. What does
Mhm.
that look like for you?
I mean, I think I've learned to think in terms of systems, right? Um, almost everything, home and work wise, like it's only going to run efficiently if there's a system in place. Otherwise, things fall through the cracks. And so I constantly find myself doing something and thinking, okay, I need a system for this, or I need a better system for this, uh, because I'm spending too much time on it, or something has fallen through the cracks. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe it sounds kind of cliche, but it's like, man, everything needs a system. Whether it's, you know, paying bills, or, you know, at work managing inventory, or even stuff at home with the kids, right? Like, how do we get out the door on time? The things, the diaper bag needs to be here, and the bottles need to be here, and the diapers need, like, there has to be, yeah, this overarching organization, or some type of system, even if it's a rudimentary one. Otherwise, like, things fall into chaos. And I think most people don't operate at home or at work very well, and in the chaos, in disorganization.
Well, and I absolutely agree. And I think systems are something that is, let's say something that could definitely be taught in school that they're missing. And the ability to think in systems in order to problem solve is, I think, something that maybe is unique to entrepreneurs, because they have to be able to do that almost on a continual basis, but definitely would carry over to anybody, even if you're just working a regular job, quote unquote, and you have
Yeah.
a house and a family, being able to think in systems. But when you say systems and business, those things connect. For me, I see automations, and
Mm.
so okay, so I guess there's a question in here. What are give me like one top system that you have implemented for the business that has made the difference for you?
Well, I mean, I can give you something really, really simple that's made a big difference. So one part of our business is events, where we take our coffee and we go out in the community and serve, like a mobile. We've got a mobile espresso cart where we go to farmers markets, private business, school, wherever, and we serve our product, right? And it sounds like pretty simple, right? Get the stuff from point A to point B, do the thing, and come back. Um, but I was, when I was doing events, almost by myself, I would always have this anxiety around, like, do I have everything that I need? Have I forgotten something? And most of the time I didn't forget anything, but sometimes I did. So, like, just having kind of a checklist of things to do before we leave, the place where we're roasting to go to where we're serving, and then, like, having an actual checklist, like, hey, do we have this? Do we have that? Do we have that? I think it's stuff like that that has improved the business, right? Like, I can sleep at night knowing that our folks are adhering to those systems, and it provides a better customer experience if we're showing up and not forgetting something, or not doing the thing the same way all the time. So again, sounds simple, but some, like, simple systems like that stacked on top of each other, I think really, really can make a difference.
Right, because okay, so let's bring it back to making your cup of coffee. If you make your cup of coffee and you are not consistent in the way that you're brewing that coffee, it's going to taste wildly different every time you make it. If you
Yeah.
go over a gram or under a gram on the water, or you go over or under on the amount of coffee you put in, or you pour too fast or too slow if you're doing a pour over, all of those things make an impact on what the cup tastes like. And if you want to drill this down a little bit more, if you want to, you like this cup of coffee, you want to continue to have this cup of coffee, you need to make sure you have a system in place that makes sure it's the same every single time. And when you're presenting
Yep.
the business to the community, you want to show up the same every single. Of course, you want to. Okay, did you like this? Did this work? Did this not work? You have, like, a checklist or a question and answer that you go through. How can we improve? Okay, fine, absolutely. But if everything is in line where you want it to be at, you find that, then you just rinse and repeat, like you said. But having a system where everything can fall in line and do the thing it's supposed to do on the time it's supposed to do it, then it's so much easier to have that be consistent and show up consistently for the community.
Yeah, and at the same time, recognizing there are variables outside of our control all of the time, but to know that what we can control, to know those things, and to be able to build organization and systems around them, like, yeah, it makes all the difference.
Okay, with the business, we talked about systems. Do you have any key automations that you have that run in the business that are, again, that top thing for you?
Automations. No, I mean we've toyed with a few things. I don't know that we're doing too much on the automation front, unless I'm not thinking of it. I mean, some of our order fulfillment and the way our customers pay us, some of that is automated through the software that we're using. When on the production side of things, when we're roasting coffee, we're using some software there that uses some automation. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's still some potential for us to tap into more automation to gain some efficiencies. I don't know if we've gone too far down that road yet.
Okay. Okay. We talked about coffee being universal. It's the universal language, like everybody, okay, not everybody, almost everybody in their right mind, let's say, has
Yeah.
a coffee fix, a coffee need, a coffee in their life in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
How do you guys see coffee as that bridge for building communities or maybe even furthermore establishing the community that you already have?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think a part of that we see in the cafe, right? Because coffee is so universal and so ubiquitous. Um, it's the it's the thing, but like physically sitting between us as we have the conversation, whether that's catching up with a friend or relative, whether that's school or business. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's an art or an aesthetic to it as well. Like holding the cup of coffee makes me feel more comfortable talking to you or someone else. Coffee has a long history of facilitating that community, of creating that community. You go back centuries and you read about the coffee houses in places like England and some of that got transferred over here to the U.S. But this idea that the coffee house was the breeding ground for ideas. Big things were sparked, big world events were sparked over coffee and coffee houses. So, I don't know that that's happening every day in our local cafe, but it is those conversations, those interactions over coffee is affecting people's daily lives, and so perhaps it's no less important.
Okay. As a business owner, if you could go back in time and give yourself some purpose-driven advice to start a business and perhaps save you some time, energy, and effort that you had to spend on the path that you took now,
Yeah.
what would be that advice that you would share with your younger self?
I think when you're first starting out, you're starting a business, even after you've got into it for a while, it it looks like it appears that there's opportunity everywhere, right? Um, and 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 sometimes that's actually true. Like you start a business, you could go in one of 20 different directions. I think one thing that I wish I would have done, and I'm still learning, right, is the focus on the specific thing and nailing that and then scaling that, right? So like, let's say you start a coffee business. There are a dozen different sales channels you could pursue from, events to wholesale to brick and mortar retail to online. Like we could make the list. When you're starting out, you want to grow the business. You want to grab sales, grab revenue wherever it is. I think at times I've gotten distracted by chasing what could be the new shiny thing, in lieu of some tried and true things that we just have to do more of to grow the business. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I guess what I'm saying is like some level of focus and intentionality around like one sales channel or one initiative before going to number two and number three.
Right. So as you're walking up the ladder, get firm footing on the run that you're on. Understand all of it. Know how to do those things really well before you go to the next step. Essentially.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
Now, as you look at the future of what Connect Coffee is for you and your family, what are some things that are on the horizon for you guys?
That's a good question. One of the things that's a little new to us this year is we've taken on some co-manufacturing clients where we're roasting coffee, not necessarily under the Connect Roasters brand, but under the brand or the name of our client. So on the back end, the process looks the same. Just in that co-manufacturing space, we're not doing the selling, we're not doing the marketing with someone else's name on the bag. We're utilizing some of the same skills and resources as we always have. But yeah, it's someone else's name on the product. And so that's been an interesting endeavor. It's been fruitful from a business perspective, and so I would like to continue to do more of that and see how that can scale our business. Obviously, there's always new product lines to pursue. Canned coffee is something that we've dabbled in and done a little bit of. I've been doing research and development on instant coffee for quite some time. So there could be some new product lines coming out there. Like I said, I think there's some untapped opportunities in our present sales channels, doing more online and on the wholesale side of things. So yeah, I would love for Connect Roasters to be the coffee that people think of when they think of our area, when they think of Chicagoland and the suburbs. There's a lot of good people doing good coffee. But I do think, the mission behind what we're doing helps us, stands out and differentiates us from the pack.
Okay. I'm not in the coffee realm. I've watched some people who do the coffee roastering and such. They say that trying to roast coffee for somebody else is really challenging because you have to get your taste, the way you think it should taste, or the way that you like it to taste is X, but theirs is Y. And trying to communicate that difference between you and them is a challenge. But on top of that, being sure that you can reliably produce the taste, the signature that they're looking for is a challenge. Have you found that to be the case or no?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk hours about that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, so there's an art and a science to it. There's a subjective part to it, and there's an objective part to it. From my experience, talking specifically like about the co-manufacturing and doing a product for someone else, that client has an idea of what they want. They've got an idea of what they want the end product to look like. At the same time, most people, they know what they don't know. And so they lean on someone like us to do some hand holding, to give some advice, to impart some best practices. So, a client might come to us and say, hey, we want X, Y, and Z. And I might say, hey, that's great. Here are a couple of suggestions in that. Maybe some ways we can tweak it to make it better, a better product, better price. So yeah, it's very much a partnership. But the thing with coffee, like a lot of products, there is a subjective quality to it, right? Like you and I can sit down and drink the same cup of coffee brewed the same way, and you can have a different opinion than I can have, right? You can taste something that I might not taste, and vice versa. So there will always be the managing of the subjective nature of it and the opinion. There's no getting around that. But that's also what makes it fun.
Well, and there's a little bit of cross learning that can happen there too, because as you and your team are trying to calibrate and get whatever the desired look or taste signature that they're looking at, you may find something along the way that works, that you guys like, and be able to apply that for a coffee that you already have, and then that would bring an opportunity to have a new line of coffee in your signature kind of flavor that is online with what you were trying to get for them, but maybe missed the mark for them, but it worked for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things in there that I think are valuable, right? Like, one is like, hey, your customers are the lifeblood of your business, and so you would do well as a business owner to listen to feedback from those folks. I mean, just to get nerdy about coffee for a minute, when we're test driving a new coffee, doing some research and development on something that we might want to sell, one of the things that we try to do on the back end is brew it a bunch of different ways to see the way that it expresses itself in these different forms, right? Because, the way you brew coffee at home might be different than, the one method that I like to use at the roastery when we're doing research and development, right? And the truth is, different coffee brewing methods can make coffee taste differently, right? So if I'm only testing the coffee one way and then all my customers are drinking it another way, there's a potential disconnect there. So yeah, I guess the lesson there as a business owner is like, hey, test the product, work with the product in the way that your customers are going to use it, not just in the way that you think is best or aligns with your personal preference.
Okay, yes, absolutely. And not only brewing it differently, but sometimes brewing it like, okay, let's use pour over as an example. There are like, I don't know, 50 different options when it comes to pour over coffee. And if you brew it on this device versus that device, you're going to have two different coffee. I mean, it's going to be the same. Everything's the same, but
Yeah.
it's going to taste two different ways. Um, okay. So with that in mind, I'm curious, what is your top tier favorite go-to brewing method? And for you, you
Mm,
you have you own the company. Which of
yeah.
your coffees that you guys have is your favorite?
Ooh, those are tough questions. That's like asking like if you have a favorite child. Yeah, I think so the coffee brewing, I'm going to give you two answers. I hope that's not cheating. One is my wife and I have I think it's a 8 cup or 10 cup Bonavita, like electric countertop coffee maker at home. Uh, and so most days, most mornings, like that's the most efficient way to get coffee from bean form to liquid form. And so, it can be doing this thing while I'm changing a diaper, and it all works well. If I've got the time, I love the Chemex. I think it makes a great cup of coffee. It's nice because you can brew more than one cup at a time. I can brew a Chemex right now, and we could share it. Some other pour over methods are essentially single cup. So I love the Chemex. It's really the method that I used when we started doing events out of Connect Roasters, doing local farmers markets. That was like my go-to, hot food coffee. So if I've got the time, Chemex is the way to go for me. I will always be partial to coffees from Central America. I think specifically Guatemala. The first pound of coffee we purchased and roasted and sold came from Guatemala, and so I have a little bit of bias towards that place. Beautiful part of the world if you've never visited. Mountains and volcanoes and valleys and really a wide range of coffees, right? A lot of traditionally tasting coffees, but a lot of experimentation around fermentation and all processing. So, yeah, very diverse country in terms of coffee production. So, I like trying new things. I'll try anything once. We had a Kenya coffee in here last week that was like super like savory, and it wasn't my personal favorite, but I recognize like that coffee can taste like that, and I respect that. But yeah, I'll probably always go back to like Guatemala as my go-to.
To go to. Okay, Chemex. That's interesting to hear because I think that Chemex in the world of um, coffee sometimes gets a bad like it's the ugly stepchild or something. I
Mm.
think what's the I'm blanking on his name. The roaster. It'll hit me. Anyways, he was really like against that. He said you
Mm.
should use it as a plant base or something, but not to brew
It
coffee
would
in.
work as a plant base, yeah.
Um,
Uh, Go ahead.
well, I was gonna say, what have you? Okay, so I have watched lots of different brew methods for the coffee. And I think James Hoffman has the standout Chemex brew method, and
Yeah.
most people are probably familiar with who James Hoffman is. And if not, you should definitely go look him up. Are there any tips or tricks that you have found in using the Chemex that gives you the best cup?
I mean, so part of it is you've got to get the grind size right. And that's true of any brewing method, but I find for a Chemex, it has to be a little bit more coarse than drip. Like for a traditional like electric coffee maker, it's certainly more coarse than some other pour over methods. So you've got to get the grind right. I suppose one downside to the Chemex is like the whole thing is glass, or traditional one is it's glass. It's got a wood collar, so it's not insulated. That coffee, if you leave it in the Chemex, if you're brewing a full Chemex and you're the only one drinking it, it's not all going to fit in your mug. And so if that stays in the Chemex, it's gonna cool off really quickly and start to oxidize. So yeah, maybe you want to transfer that to something that's insulated. So I can see where someone might not like that component of it, but Yeah, I love the square brown filters. Get the grind size right. If you do something like 40 grams of coffee and 600 milliliters of water, which is like a 15-to-1 ratio, that seems to work, at least for me, really well. So yeah, I've got I don't understand if there's a community of chemexators. I can't identify with that.
It really is a beautiful product. And what the guy who made it, he was a chemist in the 50s, I think, and that's where the paper comes from, I think as well. And I think the paper, the design of the Chemex is one thing, but the paper, the way that it filters is much different than like a V60 because it's much thicker. There's more to it, and especially if you get the natural papers versus the white papers, there's a whole different thing. But nonetheless, it is a beautiful looking product that has basically been unchanged since its inception.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, it was invented, I believe, by a German chemist scientist back in the 40s or the 50s, and yeah, it's kind of stood the test of time. More recently, we've become as a culture infatuated with uh, handmade and manual type things, and so like a lot of pour over methods, it's kind of come to the forefront. And yeah, like I said, I just love the practicality of it, that I can make essentially 2 or 3 cups of coffee at one time. um you've got to heat the water, but apart from that, you really don't need any electricity. Yeah, it's very aesthetically pleasing, so I'm a fan.
Yeah, it does look good on the counter. And if you look across, even show like my wife was watching Friends the other day, and you look in the background, and there's a Chemex on the stove just in the background, which is cool to like. I when I was when that was on or whatever, I was younger, I'd watch. Okay, but I didn't know those things. But now I see, hey, there's a Chemex in the back. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, and the other product that makes appearances like that, it seems like, is the traditional like Italian mocha pot.
Ah, yeah.
That like little stovetop percolator type thing. That device, that brewing method, has its fans, and you can see that popping up in pop culture from time to time. So yeah, those are fun moments when you see
And
the nerdy thing that you care about pop up in
that
pop culture.
that mocha pot, I mean, I don't know if I'm just doing it wrong. I've tried a couple different ways. Man, I cannot get that thing to make good coffee. I tried for a
Really?
long time. It makes coffee, but it's not for me.
Yeah, it's a little different. It can be fickle.
Mm.
Um, I think, some people like to say that brewing coffee that way is espresso, and it's not. Like, it's not coming out of an espresso machine. But like, if you were to describe one non-espresso brewing method, like, what's the closest thing we can get to like a shot of espresso? That could be it. Yeah, it could be fickle. They make them in all different sizes, which is kind of cool. But yeah, the grind size on that really matters. You have to be paying attention to it too, because like, it's sitting on the stove and the water starts to boil underneath and it starts coming out, and you can go way too long, and so you have to pay attention. It's not the easiest thing to clean. Like, the purists say like you shouldn't even clean it. Like, don't let that thing touch soap. So yeah, it's all these individual methods have their fans and their following. um it really comes down to your preferences and what works for your lifestyle, right? Like, I can't imagine making my morning coffee with a family on a mocha pot every day.
I so when I first put a foot into the coffee world, on a little bit more than like the standard. Okay, I'm just gonna have a cup of Starbucks or something. When I started making my own coffee, I wanted to do espresso because I already had at least one small kid, if not two, and I wanted to have coffee that I could have, and I could have it quick, and it wasn't cold. Because cold coffee, I mean, anybody knows cold coffee. You go to it and you're like, oh man, this is not it anymore. And if you have good
Yeah,
coffee and it gets cool down, it's not too bad, but still, it's a acquired thing. So I did espresso, but I didn't have money to buy an espresso machine, so I had a manual. I think it was called the Rock. It was before the
oh
Flare
yeah.
really got big. I had the Rock when it had came down like this. And I did that for a long time. In fact, I gave it to a friend, and then I James Hoffman had coffee wish list or something for Christmas, and in there was the Ember coffee mug, and now I have the Ember. I think I got it for Christmas soon after that. Man, I'll tell you what, having the Ember coffee mug, I don't know if you know what that is or have one.
That's the one that like keeps it warm, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it is awesome. It is awesome, and I
Interesting.
pair that with like a Yeti mag lid, and if you don't have the lid on there, it stays warm for like an hour. But if you put the lid on there and it fits right on, super easy. I think you can get like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And I mean, if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you're not just going to sit there and like chug a cup of coffee just because you want to taste it. You're going to burn your insides otherwise. So to have this and it just stays warm, oh man, that's awesome.
That's great. Yeah, I haven't tried one of those. I love the idea of it. I'm the type of person who, like Saturday morning around the house, we'll brew the coffee in the morning, we'll start drinking it, and then we start doing stuff. And then next thing you know, I can't even find my coffee, right? Like I run down the basement to do something. I'm like, where did I leave my coffee? It's in the bathroom because I carried it in there. It's in the bedroom because I went in there to fold laundry. Yeah, I lose my coffee all the time, which is
so you ridiculous. Just have a bunch of half or quarter cups of coffee all over.
Yeah, I got three half cups, one in the bedroom, one in the bathroom, and one in the basement.
Yeah, having it's hard to every once in a while I'll go, like if I go to the cafe or something, if I'm drinking a cup of coffee that's not in the ember mug, I have to be mindful and drink it kind of quick because that forgets that temperature. It's an almost a no-go for me. So I've been spoiled a little bit because man, having this is so nice because I can just have coffee and it's at a perfect, I don't know, 135 or whatever the temperature is just for the whole time. It's awesome.
I will say one thing, so to get nerdy about science of coffee a little bit. Temperature influences how we perceive things that we're tasting. And so one of the exercises that we use when we're taste testing R&D type stuff is, we'll brew some coffee maybe we're evaluating for purchase. It can taste one way when it's piping hot. It can taste a different way 10 minutes later. And then it can taste even different if you let it cool to room temperature. And so I say that to say when coffee gets to room temperature, often you can pick up nuances about the coffee that you couldn't perceive, that you couldn't pick up on when it was, right out of the brewer or when it was piping hot. So, it may not be most people's personal preference. Like nobody wants to drink room temperature coffee all the time, but it's an interesting exercise to try to, like I said, pick up on some of the nuance or the unique characteristics of a certain coffee.
Well, I've done, James Hoffman again, I've done his world coffee cupping tasting, or I forget what it's called, but like you buy the coffee, you buy the kit or whatever, you get the coffee, you do cupping tastings of it. And the very first time I cupped coffee was through that, and you're watching it live and you get to taste it and you're writing down the little notes and then you kind of compare notes with what he had afterwards. And you're right, absolutely. Because after you brew it, it tastes one way, but after you go through them, you do it 4 or 5 different times. It cools down, and that's part of the process. You want it to cool down because you're looking for it to pull out different flavors that were probably there when it was warm, but you couldn't taste because they were overpowered by whatever other flavors were more present when it was hot. So if nobody has done a cupping before, or you wanted to try something like that, definitely try the coffee that you like at a couple different temperatures, because you might find that you like it at 15 minutes after you brew it, as opposed to 2 minutes after you brew it, much more. And, that's something that anybody could probably do at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Intentionally or on accident, because you misplaced your coffee.
Yes. Well, Caleb, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. Talking to you, it reminds me that business isn't just about profit. It's about the people and leaving a legacy, an impact on the community that we're in. We've heard that, Connect Coffee is more than just the cafe. It's a place of community, built on intentionality and heart. We help to explore also that discipline and persistence allow you to balance entrepreneurship with having a family. And true success isn't measured only in growth, but in how those connections measure up. And as we're getting ready to end here, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways you would like to leave the listeners with? And, if they wanted to find out more about you or to stop by the cafe, what would be, the best way for them to learn about you?
Yeah. So our handle across all social media is just at Connect Roasters, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, brick and mortar cafe here in Bourbonnais, Illinois, on South Main Street in the heart of town, across from Olivet Nazarene University here. So check us out there. ConnectRoasters.com is the website. I talk to students quite a bit. I've talked to a number of entrepreneurship clubs and classes where students are interested in starting their own business. One of the things I try to communicate to students who are interested or excited about starting their own business is, um, you know, it's an element of what we talked about, right? Like I think entrepreneurship gets romanticized, um, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And I try to communicate that in a way that doesn't discourage anyone. But I think the truth is it's not for everyone, right? Not everyone is wired to start their own business, to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone is in a situation or a chapter of life when they should be doing something like that. So um, yeah, like it's great. But I tell people like, you shouldn't feel bad if you feel like that's not the best choice for you, right? Like there's a lot of upside or a lot of benefits to being the number two or the number three in an organization. Um, you'll probably get better sleep among other things. So yeah, I guess communicating this idea of like almost counting the cost for as much as you can. Obviously, you don't know what you don't know when you're just starting out, but well, yeah, it's one of those things where there's a certain upside and it's great in a lot of respects, but running a business is not always glamorous. That's the best way I can put it.
Well, thank you for your time and energy and the conversation that we had. And listeners, if this conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend, subscribe to the Pursue This Initiative, and sign up for our newsletter for more lessons on discipline, mindset, and mastery. Until next time, remember, what you build matters, and who you build it for matters more.